Okay. Let's try this. Okay, I put up another one. Hopefully this stream is gonna work. But please let me know if it's not. All right, so we can inspect what we've got here. So let's go in there and we'll check on our response.data. Looks pretty good. And then it looks like we have maybe the results. Then we've got all of these objects. And okay, this looks like what I want. Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, Charmander. I'm going to trust that this is all of them. If it's not, then it's okay. So great. Okay, so and it looks like we got there from res.data.results. So what I'm going to do in here is we can reset the state. So we can say this dot set state, and we can say Pokemon res.data.results. Awesome. So this should reset the state. And we can check that that's working also just by, I'm just going to log here, this.state.pokemon. It shows that it was empty. Hit component did mount. Then hit re-render after the change of the state. And so now we've got those all in our state. Awesome. Yeah, Davey.
What's the best way to deal with data that takes out of the file?
That's a great question. I'm happy to ask that. Okay, so the question for those of you who didn't hear it was like, hey, what's the best way to deal with data that doesn't populate very quickly? So there's a few ways, right? We could have something that's like a loading screen. So we could say loading and start this at like true. I don't know what all that. I hope that doesn't become a thing. Right? If we started this at loading true, and then when we set state and this finally got it, we could then set this back to like it's no longer loading to false. And so in our render, we can show a loading screen. Here's an example.
So loading screen just text. Just text.
Or like a wheel. You know, you can make things that go like. Yeah. For sure. With CSS, like a favicon. You know those, like, have you ever been to a website and it's like shows that it's thinking and it does that? That's all. That's to make it feel like that's put in so it doesn't feel uncomfortable for us. So we get to watch it spin and go like, oh, something's happening. It's like just something that makes it feel fast. Like, so if we did something like that, I could say like, in here I could say if this.state.loading, and then I can return. I should get this all in the right area, but so I just right. I could say and then in here, once we get our data back, I'll set this back to load. Oh my God, loading is false. Right, so you can see that it says loading very briefly right here. So for this, you probably wouldn't really necessarily need to do that because it is so fast. And you wouldn't really have it just say loading. You would make some sort of animation wheel. And there are like, I don't know, I read this really interesting article about user experience, and it talked about like slowing down a website on purpose so that the user experience is nice. So like if all the information comes in, it doesn't just show like loading like that. like start with a wheel and then jump in. They said that could be uncomfortable, so they wanted it to go all the way around before showing. Interesting. I hadn't thought about slowing down the experience for my user to make it nicer, but I guess it makes sense. Anyway, so that's an option, Davey. That's something you might want to consider. Okay, back to the real game at hand. Let's put a button here. And then we got to figure out the text. So I'm going to make my text dependent on whether or not it's showing. So I'm pretty sure this should work if I just say this.state.showing. So in the event that it is showing, we'll say, like, actually, do I have to put in quotes? Let's see. Hide Pokemon. Otherwise, I want to show Pokemon. Just make sure it's not giving me a bunch of weird things. Okay, cool. So it says show Pokemon. It's pretty small. Let's see if I can make that screen bigger. Right, so I'm just using a ternary, just a little bit of logic depending on our state. Saying like, hey, is it showing? Is it not showing? And then on here, we got to do something with a click. So I'm going to say on click. What do we want to do on click? What makes sense? Yeah, how are we going to display the data? We're on the right track. Got to make a separate. What do we want the function to do? What do we want to actually happen when we click? Yeah, we want it to show, and then how are we going to make it show? What's determining whether something's showing? Bing, what was it? Our state. We have a thing in our state called whether or not it's showing. So on the click of a button that's operating as a ternary on that state, what might we want to do? Set state? Excellent. Set state to what? Showing true. I'm going to call this a toggle showing. And I'm going to do toggle showing. This dot set state showing. So I want to set showing to true, yeah. But if I just write true and I click that button, it's always going to be true. So what can I do? What's a clever solution we can think of? All right, turn and talk with your neighbor for a minute and see if you guys can figure out what the best thing we can put in here for, okay?
We're displaying the Pokemon. The did turn
All right. My parents want to hear my voice. All right. What were some of our solutions? Let's talk about it. What do we think of? Yeah, Leo.
Yeah, maybe we need to put some attachment rate based on the status of the Pokemon within the stage. If there are some information passed already into that array, which means that the on-stage button already placed. Then the showing can be true.
Okay. So we're doing are you saying we're doing an if statement in our toggle here?
Yeah, it's not.
So tell me what this looks like.
So if this dot stage dot Pokemon.
Interesting. Okay.
That are already some information over there. But then the showing can be reset to true.
Okay, I see. So you're probably going to want to do length because it's an empty array, and an empty array is still truthy. But so yeah, we could do that, and we could do like a this dot showing like that, right? Or we do like some else this dot showing. So that's an interesting thing, but we're not actually changing Pokemon. Pokemon is going to be in our state the whole time, so we don't want to use that because we want to be able to still hide the Pokemon. And since we're not going to remove them from our state after this component did mount, we just want to not show them. So we can't use that. What else? What else do we think of? Yeah, Maury.
Use both state array and set in state. Like, I have no idea of that.
Okay, I think I kind of get what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think what you're saying is we can do something like if dot state dot showing. So we'd be checking whether or not it's showing. And if it is showing, we would set this to false. Otherwise, we would do this, the set state. Well, here. Oops. True. Would this work? Yeah, David.
Yeah. Or there's a showing is that state.
Okay, yeah. So David says we can do this even shorter, right? We don't need this whole if else statement. We want it just to be set to whatever the opposite of the current state of showing is. So instead of having this and all, whoops, and all of this, he's saying we can just say bang this dot state dot show. Yeah, I like that. That's probably the shortest and cleanest way we can write it. Right? We're saying, hey, if this dot state dot showing is false, set it to true. Otherwise, set it to false. We're just taking the opposite of what this already is. Question? Yeah, Johnny.
What about to put like types of operators inside this that state? Like right now it's kind of like conditional logic. The set state,
It's not exactly conditional logic.
like you're present and not present.
I don't know what situation you'd want other conditional or logical operators, so I don't really know how to even answer that. Just try it, I guess, if you come into that situation, but I don't think you'll come into that. Yeah.
I think maybe I should say something walking out of that. So say you make say this showing state equals start stage, short stage. Okay, this is
Yeah, we could remove this outside, take this logic outside for sure. I'm a fan of writing one line when I can. I don't feel that this is sacrificing any kind of clarity to somebody looking at it. So I would keep it like this. I break things down if I think it's sacrificing like a significant clarity. But for something like this, it says it's toggle the showing. They already should know what it's doing. And then this is just the knot in front of it. So I feel safe with this. So I'm going to keep that. Great. So let's see if this is working. Do we have show Pokemon? Didn't like that. Undefined. Okay, so this is probably because why? Maybe I'll see what you guys think. Why might I be getting this error? Yeah, Eric? Because I'm not binding anywhere. Yeah, exactly. So let's add that. Let's just go this dot toggle showing equals this dot find this. What? Now, okay, so now we've got this hide Pokemon show Pokemon action. That's pretty cool. That is A-okay. Okay, so now we actually just have to show the Pokemon. So how do we want to do this? I mean, we can keep this simple and just do it right here, or we could break this down into another component, right? So I'm going to make a Pokemon component. Pokemon.js. I'll call this Pokemon list. And maybe I'll actually make another folder called Pokemon. Start cleaning things up a little bit. So let's import, well, let's write this, I guess. So this is going to be stateless component. So I'm going to write it like it's functional, right? So export const Pokemon list props under this return I'm going to make this a UL. Pokemon, we can put a debugger in here too, right? I do have to import React, thank you. Let's see what happens when I don't. I want us to, I'm sure we're all going to make lots of mistakes on the test, and I want us to get used to seeing some big mistakes. But we will probably be able to quickly solve it, but that's all right. Okay, so then an app, let's import our Pokemon. Pokemon list from dot slash Pokemon slash Pokemon list. And we have to actually show it. And what do we want to pass to this? Maybe Pokemon, right? This dot state dot Pokemon. Okay, question so far? Are we happy with this? Unhappy with this? Whatever. Yeah. You mean in our state or in the file structure? Oh. Absolutely. No problem. Okay, so we get fail to compile. React must be in scope when using JSX. What's causing this error? Neely? Yeah. Right, and we didn't do any of that because we didn't import from React here. We have to, if we want to be able to do that, we have to import it. Okay, so now we've hit this component and we've got this Pokemon array, and we can look at it and we can say props.Pokemon, and we go, all right, awesome, we've got props.Pokemon. Sick. So let's map, so we can map through this. So instead of this debugger, I'm just gonna say let the Pokemon equal props.Pokemon.map, and each item is a poke. This is maybe a good opportunity to break this into even another component, right? Why not? Because maybe, I know for this one it's kind of silly because it's just a Pokemon name that we're using, so it feels silly. But for good practice of like pretending like we actually have more information, I'm going to break it into another thing. So inside of our Pokemon file, I'm going to add a new file called Pokemon list item.js. Let's import React this time. Spell it right. Functional component, right? Const Pokemon list item props. And I know I'm just going to pass in this name. So I'm going to make these, going to return where I'm going to say props.name. And maybe I'll put these in the LI. See what happens. All right, let's import that. Whoops. Gotta look at my hands. Okay. Import Pokemon list item from /Pokemon list item. And so now we can just return our Pokemon list item. And let's pass in that name. So I'm going to say name is equal to poke.name. See what happens. Export. I guess I didn't so it says I didn't default. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's see if we can follow this there. Okay, what's going on here? It says it's attempted import error. Pokemon list item does not contain a default export imported as Pokemon list item. What's wrong? Exactly. It needs brackets. It's thinking I'm doing like a class. Good catch, Maury. Okay. So now when I click on, now it just always says Pokemon. Why is it saying that? Oh, because we're doing that here. So now we have to, with JSX, put in this variable that we're creating up here on line 4. Right? So we're saying, all right, let's just see our Pokemon. it all shows up as props.name, right? You go, oh no, why is it doing that? Well, let's see. I think that probably needs to be in JSX. All right, so we've got Bulbasaur, Ivysaur. This is pretty good, right? We're making progress. I think we're almost there. We've got this nice toggle that doesn't do anything about this. But we can, and we get this unique key. Let's fix that little error. We can do that up here. Let's say key. I'm just going to also make this poke.name. Great. Okay, so what's next? What's our last step here? What do we have left? Yeah, we got to hide this info somehow, right? Agreed. So, where do we want to hide that? Where can we hide that? What are we thinking? All right, turn and talk with your neighbor for a minute, okay? Figure out what we need to do next, and then when we come back, let's get some answers. Should be a lot more talking in the turn and talk. All right, clever hands once you can hear my voice. All right, what did we come up with? What were some of our ideas? Oh, come on, we gotta have something here. You ever not?
Two options. One is use CSS to change the class name. Toggle after class name. Two different class names. One does display on the other display like some different.
Okay.
The other way is to use the memory.
Okay. Very cool. So Renat says the first way she thought they thought of two ways, which is awesome. One of the ways they said was they could use a class name that they keep track of also in the state, or like that's dependent on whether or not it's showing, and they would give it a different class, and we'd style that class as either something that's being displayed or something that's not being displayed. Very cool. And your other idea you said was a ternary. Could you walk me through that one? Let's try that.
What does this that say that Pokemon all is that this?
That's going to be the list. Yeah.
So if showing is false, then I put this thing.
Yeah.
This also called.
So in the event that it is showing, sure. Just say null, something. That will work. That's awesome. Let's see if that works. It says show Pokemon. Hide Pokemon. Cool. Thank you, Renat. All right, so that's the warm-up, right? I mean, that's, hopefully we can do this. We should be able to get this by the end of the day, at least, like be able to bang this out. That should be maybe a personal goal. This is the kind of stuff that could show up. Similar concepts as this could definitely show up next week. Okay, so it's super important to be able to like control what we're seeing based off of things in the state, right? This could potentially be one aspect. Okay, so moving on to like what we really got going on today that we want to talk about is we're going to talk about this React router. So we're going to finally get into front-end routing for our applications. So, so this is like when we go to websites and like we go to Facebook and we see that this is Facebook./ this might not be a great example. But if I were to like do profile or something, we might end up at a profile. I'm not logged in, so it won't let me do that. Right, this is all front-end routing. When we go to Google and then I type in cats, and then we get this weird string which doesn't look very good, but we can see that this is on the front end. We're not seeing a back-end thing. We look at Cats the Musical and we go to this website. Let's see what their routing gives us, right? So we went from Cats Musical / Broadway. This was a different front-end route, and then it pinged the back-end to get us different information. Love this musical. Right, and we can go like, oh, what about Cats on tour? So if I click on Japan, what do we expect to happen to the URL? Change, and what do we think it will change to? It will add Japan. Yeah, right. So I don't know if they built their website nicely. Nah, I guess it's well, that's doing a whole different thing. But but that is like the expected behavior, right? Cats on tour, and we just got .com/tour, right? So I wonder what happens if I click on gallery. Let's see. Now it says gallery / the show. If I click on an individual picture, I see like this is one of the pictures. This is the second one, the third one. You can see it changing the URL. Right, so this is for us. Believe it or not, this is for the front end user experience, and it also we can use this kind of thing to help our app control what we see. So if I go to .com/, this is their /, but if I go to Broadway, that website knows that it should actually be routing me to their Broadway page, right? And maybe they have hidden things. I don't know. Maybe I could type in like Jellicle and stuff like that. Anyway, so we've got this idea that there is routing. There's different pages. And so let's talk about that. First thing we're going to learn is we have to use something called Browser Router to help us. So I'm going to, inside of my app here, I'm going to npm install. And I'm going to go React Router. So this is going to allow us to use the DOM. Oops. I'm going to always save it so when the next person installs my app, it still works for them. So definitely do it like this. Remember the whole goal, the global is the only thing for your machine. So if you host it and someone else downloads your project, if it's global on your machine, it might not be on theirs. So NodeMon doesn't matter. Create React app doesn't matter. But anything else that has to do with the functionality matters. Okay, so I'm going to npm install this. And this is going to allow us to route around. While that's going, I'm going to
know if there are any other libraries, or is this just the most popular one?
Yeah, I don't know. This is definitely like very popular. I think the one with React. I don't know if there's others. I'm only familiar with this one. Okay, so now we've got it. So the first thing we got to do is we got to get this. We have to encapsulate our whole app in browser router so that we can use all of the routing within the app. So where is our whole app held? Right, index.js. So this is a good spot for this. So I'm going to import in curly braces, go browser router from React router DOM. I misspelled it, yeah. It's like Bowser. If you have trouble remembering, you can think of like Bowser's Castle, but then browser. And then if you want to be doing routing, so it's the Bowser router or browser router. That's how I remember it. You definitely don't have to remember it that way. You just have to remember it. Okay, so then in order to do this, we're just going to add our browser router around here. Great. So now I have the ability to do front-end routing. Yeah, so if you look over at the goals, these are the words that I plan on hopefully having you know by the end of this. The bonus ones, less worried about. We'll probably hit those more in depth tomorrow or this afternoon. But those top ones, path, exact path, link to, browser router, and route, definitely be on the lookout, okay? So we just did browser router. This is about the extent to which we will be using browser router, right? We import it in our index.js, we wrap our app in it, and now we're ready for routing. Questions on that process?
No, what's going on?
So it's a package. It's like I believe it's a high order package that is making it so we have access to look at the URL and change it around. I don't really know the underpinnings of everything that's going on there. But it's wrapping the whole thing. Yeah.
Or you need to make that a little more. How does that like feed into React?
Great question. So just like the CATS website, where we were able to determine what page we were seeing based off of the URL, that is the behavior that we're planning to replicate today. So right now, if I go to localhost 3000 and I type in CATS, nothing happens. We still just have it say show Pokemon, and I can change this to cats and dogs, and it just totally doesn't care at all. So after today, we're going to be able to go change this and also actually see a visual reflection of that change. Exactly. So Mona brings up a great point. This is just the front end. So this has nothing to do with the back end. We have all of our back end routes. And we kind of kept talking about or alluding to the fact that we're going to have this different back end routing and front end routing. This is coming up now, although we are only focusing on the front end routes, but we know how back end routes work. We're going to be using those back end routes for like those Axios calls to get specific information. So maybe I go to things like those /posts and I want to see all the posts. So I have to see the front end component that has to do with the posts. And part of that component JavaScript might go grab the posts from the backend, but they're separate concepts. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll get more comfortable. Okay. So we've got our browser router set up, check. Now we go into our app, and let's do a couple more imports. Let's import route and maybe link. From React router done. Actually, forget link for now. Sorry. I don't want us to do link yet. We'll do link in a minute. Let's do one thing first. And we'll call this a route.
We can call those methods from React Router. Are they methods or what are they called?
Yeah, functions, methods, we're using them. Route, we'll get into this, but this route is technically a high order component. A high order component, I don't want to get too in depth with today, but essentially it's the idea of a component that renders another component. It's a wrapper component. I can write that down.
That'd be recall parent components.
So its only job is to render a component. It only renders a component.
Oh,
Yeah. So let's pretend that I had, well, there's an example if you read through the GitHub thing, but there's an example of this fancy border, which is like, it's a component that's styled to have a fancy border, and all it does is render other components, but any component that it renders will have a fancy border. You could just keep passing anything you want a fancy border to do and wrap it in that component. That's technically what route does. Route is a high order component saying like, hey, give me a component. We're going to keep, because we're going to give our route a component, and route's going to say, my job is going to show that component, but when we're at this specific route. It doesn't change or do anything except for say, is this the route that I need to show this component? If yes, I will show this component. So what does that actually look like, right? That's the question. So we got to make a couple components. I'm going to, in our source here, I'm going to go ahead and make a couple things just so we have them. So I'm going to say new file. I'm going to have a home page, home.js. This is just so we have different components to render. Okay. Export const home props return. So go ahead and make a few dummy things. Give you a minute. That way we can actually like, see how this is going to work. So I've got a home. I'm also going to go ahead and make an about. New file. About.js. Maybe I can take all of this stuff. I can make this its own component. Let's make a Pokemon. Just a regular Pokemon. And I'm going to take everything we did in the warm-up. I'm going to take this stuff and move it into there. Things are going to have to change a little bit, but that's okay. Let's see, where did the Pokemon go? Pokemon props. Oops. Yeah, so this is the annoying part of the lecture. We'll get to more interesting stuff soon. Unclick props. So props without showing. And then instead of this, I'm just going to, also do props. Yeah, there we go. Props dot showing. And then inside of app, I will get rid of this. Okay, so now we've got 3 components. We have a home, we have about, and we have Pokemon. Yeah, Maury? I had another reference to state. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay, cool. Questions on what we've done so far? Yeah.
You were going to say what we just did. We got the pages home, about, and Pokemon, but we're going to set those up as routes. Is that what we're?
Yeah, we haven't actually done anything yet. We've just made a few different pages for us to actually get to go to. So inside of app, we got to import. Oh, I don't need this. We got to import all of our stuff. So up here, I'm no longer importing this. Oh, Pokemon needs to import that though. Hang on, before we get too lost in the weeds. Yeah, we do. You're 100% right. Import this item. Yeah. Import. Make sure that's on the other ones. Nice catch. Thanks. Oh, it is. Just the one I did. Awesome. Okay, so back to here. We got to import now. Yep.
So we did some changes with Pokemon. So this state with props.
Yep.
And that was one of the Pokemon.
Yeah.
And also we went to app. And what else we need to do on this page?
I haven't done too much yet. Okay, more.
We need to pass props that access that.
To access the Pokemon?
The props, just to use the whole bottom and everything, the props.
For here?
No, yeah.
Right? Yeah, I'll definitely need to. I don't even have that component here right now.
Oh,
But I will, for sure. Okay, so let's import stuff. So let's import Pokemon from /Pokemon /Pokemon. I'm going to import home from /home. And about. Okay. So we've got these 3 pages. Oh man, what's going on here? Pokemon list is not defined. Wait, no, that was right before, right?
Let's do it in passing the props.
Okay, no.
Just go button where
What next?
the button got Pokemon is. Pokemon.
In Pokemon.
The
This should be item though. Oh, I see what you're saying. I also need lists, right? Thank you. Great, so now we have nothing in here. Exactly, perfect. Okay, are we okay still? All right, so one more component because I think it's going to be helpful. I'm also going to make something called a nav bar. Promise that's the last one for this. Hopefully. And I'll import React from React. Export const nav bar. Okay. A nav bar is something we would always want to show, but we will show. Okay. And the last thing here. Okay, so now we've got 4 components. We have nav bar, home, about, and Pokemon. Yes? And we have currently, so our old way of deciding which components to show is we would say like, hey, if this, show this, else if this, show that, and we'd have to keep looking at state, and we didn't really have a great way to decide. So here we come with our beautiful route. So the way route works, we can put it in here, and we can say, okay, route, and then we can say what path. So path is talking about the URL. Path is the URL, and we're going to say, okay, so if path, we're going to say, so if we want to go to about, we could say slash about. And on this path, what component do we want to see? We want to see about. Thank you, man. Right? So I'm going to say component. Component. I want to see the about component. Okay? What's lowercase? Right here? So this is, yeah. This is the thing we're using for, this is part of route. So path is part of route, component is part of route. This is for route. Route is this high order component that its only job is to render another component, but usually with something else. So like personally, I've made my own route thing before, which uses route, but I did it for authentication. So I checked like if it's a protected route or an authentication route, so then it would check like, hey, if the user's not logged in, then route them to here. And it's like, it's just an if-else statement in theirs too, which is probably what route's doing underneath. It just is like, if that path is equal to about, render this, else, no. That's all it's doing under the hood that I'm aware of. So we'll check and we go, okay, let's go back to just our local host. Oops. Okay, nothing showing, perfect. This is the expected behavior. So now if I go slash about, we get the about page. Yeah, thanks, sir. Okay, so now what about if I want it to be slash? Slash I would really like to just be the home page, right? Okay, so I got to set up this route for that. So let's do that. We're going to go out path slash home. Oh, actually, just that, right? I want this to be the home. Okay, and then which component do we want to show? Component home. So we're going to say component home. Okay. So now we go and we see, okay, we're at home. And if I do slash about, interesting. Now we're at home and about. What happened? What do we think's happening? It's rendering both. Yeah, that's right, Abed. Why? How do you sense that?
You have the first slash out there, so it reads the first slash, so it does the whole, and it follows up with where there's slash.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Britt, so the reason this is showing both things is because of the way paths are matched, right? So if we do a slash, that's only going to show home because that's just the home, and about has all this other words, right? But if I do slash about, this is in this. So if this is in this, it's going to show this as well. Okay, so there's a few ways that we could beat this. Right, and I just want to point out that it doesn't matter. Is this going to make a difference? What do we think? No, it doesn't make a difference. It just now says about home. Right, because it's still matching. This is still a match because it's included in the beginning, the first half. Right, same with if this was just, maybe this makes it more obvious. If that was about and the other one was about, still has it in there. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's because I only have about. And then if I do about, wait a minute. What happened? That's weird. Now everything's weird, eh? Hey, that was not the expected behavior I was expecting. Interesting. Okay, so I guess this only seems to be a problem when it's just slash. That was unexpected. Point still stands. This is an issue, right? Okay, so the ways we can get around this. One way that I like is we have this beautiful little thing that route gives us called exact. So I can say the exact path. So I want this to show only if it's exactly that. So if I save that, now we have just our about. And it will still show not anything. Hey, that's a solution. Yeah.
So if you do slash about and something after, then it still show about.
Slash about. Apparently not.
What do you do?
Do I have two slashes there? No. I don't know why it's doing that. That was really unexpected.
You do A, yeah, that's all about.
Nope. Seems to only be an issue with just the plain slash. They may have improved on this since the last time I had it. Yeah, Tyson.
So like this, like when we did express, is there like a way to do like a star for a path?
That's a great question. Yeah, there is. There is. It looks like that. Same. That's definitely a catch-all that you could use. Okay, so we've got this. For the record, we can also use wildcards the same way, right? If I were to do about slash ID, we'll still get this now. About slash like 34. We still get this about. It doesn't. It's okay that this 34 is changing. That's a-okay. We will eventually do something with that, Mateo.
So we use exact for slash.
You don't have to. You can use exact for all of them if you want to. Yep.
The wild cards. But like, let's say render data use, put screen, put express.
This has nothing to do with Express. This is only front end, right? We haven't done it. You watched us create this, right? We've only done create React app. We haven't used Express or anything like that.
Wild card feature.
Yeah, so wildcard is part of regex, which is a part of JavaScript, not strictly part of Express.
And so the path set exact, and you have a potential of the endpoint for page. Would that get to it if it was exact or is it? More around those like path equals slash star.
So let's get another path in here and see. So we do a route, and we have another path. Let's say we want this to be slash Pokemon. Thank you. And for that one, we want to show, oh, well, this one is, okay, let's just do, for now, let's just show the nav bar. I know it doesn't make any sense, but we don't have a good way of passing props yet. Okay, so you're saying if we do exact, and then this is some catch-all. Yeah, this is your question, right? And if we go to Pokemon, will we still see this? I don't think so. Well, I guess we do. Yeah. So Yeah,
Wouldn't it be best to just put exact?
yeah, we could do that for sure.
The order doesn't matter. It would still lower Pokemon about the same time.
Well, order sort of matters. Right now, we'll show them the other way around. So, okay, I guess I will introduce this because we are very excited about this. But we can also use something called a switch statement, which goes like this. So inside of import, I'm also going to import switch. And I can wrap all of these routes in a switch. So what switch does is it makes it so I can only hit one of the routes. So now we should only hit the nav bar and not the about. And we do. Okay. And in this situation, then yes, order very much matters. Because all of a sudden, if I go here, we're not going to hit Pokemon because one route's already satisfied. Mateo? Well, I think you will need exact. So if we do path here, what's going to happen? Oh, now we just hit home and we stop. Because slash counts it as a match. Thomas. Yeah, so you would, that's a great question. So you would do something, you could do something like this, where this is like your own special 404 page, instead of our about component. I don't want us to get too caught up on like the user experience so much as like just how it works. Yeah. So the switch statement says we're only going to hit one route that matches. The exact says only on the exact path this is match. And path says, hey, show this component. Okay. So I don't want this to be this anymore. It's not. Goal. Go back to about. Okay. So we've got a route working. We've got these different routes. And we're able to show different components to the user based off of those routes. Right? If they go to home, what happened? I don't have a home anymore. Oh, right. Because it's just the slash. Yeah. That's silly. Right, my catch-all, by the way, for Thomas, my catch-all generally is the home. Like this. That's my catch-all. So if somebody comes to my website and does a bunch of random stuff, they just go home. Okay, Jen?
I'm curious to know if you could set more than one route and one routing like bracket. Because that you can't.
What do you mean?
I mean, if you wanted to show slash as home and also homes, can you not do it on one line?
Oh. I'm not sure. You might be able to do with some like logic thing in there. You might be able to use ternary logic here, but I don't know if you can do different paths. It's not expensive to do this. Okay, so this is a pretty big win, right? We're visually seeing different components on the front end. That's actually huge. So coming up, it's really annoying that I have to keep typing in every single time the URL, right? Maybe other people are annoyed by that too. I definitely am. So let's show the other, let's show the way for us to actually navigate around our site. And I think a nav bar is probably a pretty apt place to do that. So let's import again something called link. From where? Where's it coming from? Exactly, right? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call this a nav bar, right? Oops. That. And wrong. Should be fine, right? Is it nav or nav bar? I don't remember. I never remember. It is nav bar, right? What do we? It was nav bar, right? When we used this. All right, hang on. All right. So if we want a component to always show, we don't give it a route. I mean, we don't give it a path. I could just say route. Component. Oops. Nav bar. I think that's always going to show now. Yeah. Great. Our nav bar just has hello in there, right? Yeah. So this will always show.
So my school is not far. Oh, I'm sorry. In your phone,
Mm-hmm.
can I ask what those tags are doing between the hello? Like, I'm not sure what the navbar tags are supposed to be doing.
So I'm just indicating that it's a nav bar. They're just HTML tags. Should act like a div, but to like accessibility, they'd be able to read it as a nav bar. Johnny.
So when you use the app.js, you type in routes, you don't put in path. That routes with the component will be on every page, every path afterwards.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So really, right, this, what we did here is really the same thing as what we used to do when we did this, right? Same thing.
We're going to use this and that.
Yeah, the tag. Okay. So Max says it's just supposed to be nav. Yeah, that looks more familiar. Thanks. Thank you, Max. Okay, so what does a nav bar usually do? Yeah, it helps us navigate around the site. So let's do it, right? So we'll go to our nav bar, and we can start with a link. And you write link. Now, okay, so here's the beautiful part, right? We just say where we want to link. It reads like English, link to, and I'll say /about. Inside, I'll say about page. Oops. Close it. Close it. We have Pokemon. But we don't actually have that one yet, I don't think. We'll say / to take us back home. Yeah, I'll get rid of the page. Okay, so we've got these 3 routes. Hang on, Mateo. And now we have about, home, and person. I can click OK. Let's about, and it moves us to, and we see the about page. And I go OK, home, home page. Pokemon, I don't think we've set up yet, so it seems to just freak out of some sort. But we can go back to home and about too.
On your app page, it's go back to the you're saying to make the actual be an app in and does it need to say exactly
For which one?
whatever you said that to do?
Well, I do that here because I'm using regex to catch all with the star.
Okay. In other words, it doesn't do that first one or still?
Definitely need this first one if I want there to be a home page that's just slash, and I don't want it to show every time. I mean, I could not have this at all. Is that what you mean? Just like,
Yeah. And slide.
yeah, but it's like a little bit more weird to me. So this is how I like, this is personally how I like to have it. So it's like each thing's broken up because this doesn't have to be home. This could be anything. Bane?
Now, having tags are outside of the switch tags. It's gonna be very personal.
Yep. This is always going to show up.
Can you explain again why exact path?
Not for what?
About
The reasoning for having it for Pokemon and not for about is so that when you look back on this, you'll be able to see that there's more than one way. That's purely the reason why I did that.
Can you repeat that?
She asked why I have exact on the Pokemon path but not on the about, and I'm saying, so when you look at this and study it, you'll see that there's alternative ways of doing it. Muna. Absolutely.
I don't know if you explained this clear now, but why are we not complete about and
Ah, that's a great question. I haven't explained that. She says, why are we not importing about our Pokemon? Does anybody want to take a guess? Maury?
This React browser.
Yeah, I mean, that's the partial answer, right? We have this React Router DOM. This isn't actually rendering components. This navbar isn't rendering any components for us. All of our components right now are being rendered through app. But this is just changing that URL space right here. So when I click on this, it shows home or about or Pokemon. And then in our home or in our app page there, it's saying, hey, when it's this route, I'm rendering that component. So app is still the one rendering the component. These are just giving us links to change that URL. That's a great question. David,
So that is when it's path drops.
indoor nav? Yeah, I don't see. Not unless we need props in or nav. Okay, so let's see here. What do I want to cover? Okay. So this is the key. This is like the meat and potatoes here, right? We've hit path, exact path, link to, browser router, route, and component. I'm going to push us just a little bit more, which is like, because I know this is going to come up. I know multiple people are going to ask me this today. They're going to say, hey, how do I pass a prop? Right? Like our Pokemon had all those props before. Right? Our Pokemon is expecting the showing Pokemon and toggle showing. And we're like, we don't have that. Right? How do we get that in there? This should really be Pokemon. Right, that's why I kept showing the navbar again. Right, and we go, So does anybody have any ideas? I know. Yeah.
It's like added to the route.
And I wish we could. I really wish we could. So that would be really awesome, and that is what's intuitive, right? Hopefully that's what they'll get someday. But instead, they actually have something called render. So instead of using component, so I'm gonna get rid of this. You do something. You go render, and then you create this anonymous function that takes in props. And then you write your component that you want. And then inside of our component, we can pass the props that are naturally going through there. So we go props. This is for these, this is like the spread operator. And then for all of our specialized props, we pass them in here. So we would say Pokemon showing, right? This state dot showing. SFS. What else do we have? Toggle showing. So I'll do toggle showing. This dot toggle showing. And we had Pokemon, I think. Yeah. Pokemon. This dot state dot Pokemon. So that's the way we have to do that, unfortunately. Jen?
Expand upon the reason we're using ES6 in here in the render part.
It's just the only way to pass the props. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
In order to pass those props, and this is just something that route gives us that takes in a function. And that function we're returning is that component. Yep.
I have 2 questions.
All right.
So, I use spread operator props.
So that's for these props. So when we get into introducing a little bit more stuff, there will be more props being passed in than ones that we explicitly say, such as like our location and URL, and params, and history and match. And so we're doing that for these because I'm not passing all those in individually.
Second question is once we get to like the structure like normal props.
Yep, we could still totally destructure like normal. Not if we want those other props, like location and history. I guess we'd have to add those in there too. But yeah, for everything else, Davey,
So I don't know what these props are, and they're just,
you'll have to trust me for today. You'll see them tomorrow. I know, nobody wants to hear that. You can also look up with router. That will give you some hint. With router. So with router allows us to see our path and our location and match and our history and has all of these other things built into it so we can help navigate our site. And so with that, we're passing those props into there as well. But we can't actually see that yet. We haven't learned it. If I go into that, then we'll learn something new and have questions all about that. So for now, we have to just accept that part, but I'm still can't answer questions. Yeah, Muna.
So whenever we props, we have to do it this way with the render.
Yep.
Right? And we're going to be using props with almost all of them, assuming. We're going to be writing it like that for everything.
You'll be writing like that for most of the time. For now, when we introduce Redux and stuff, you don't have to get props this way. You get your props from a container component. So we could just write component and then that container. And then from that container, that passes the props. That's the way I initially learned it. I had to look this thing up, especially when I first got hired. Yeah.
You have to close the route there.
Yeah, and we did. Didn't we? Maybe I didn't. Hang on. No, we definitely did. This is referring to
The word route.
route. Yeah. No, just like the other ones.
Oh,
It's a self-closing tag. Good question. Let's make sure this works. Go to Pokemon. Go Pokemon. Hide Pokemon. Home and about. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Davey.
So what else do you do? Like let's say you have a or
If I don't delete, if I don't have props here,
and
yeah, still functional. I'm going to keep it in. Better practice. You definitely need that later. Okay.
So it's still good to have, not necessarily stay outside. Stay. Don't put it in the components, like don't put the top one, all that, in the Pokemon page.
Well, I'm still doing. I mean, right. This is. Yeah, we've talked about this a fair deal. Like, if we know exactly what you're building, you could have a component with its own slice of state. Like, nothing would break if I did that with Pokemon. But if I use that information in any of the other components, I'm going to have a hell of a time. So we're still going to keep all of our information for now in app for that single source of truth. It's a fair question, though, because for this it would be fun.
So you could have those sent to
Totally.
if it would still give that functionality, it's not going to render.
Well, I would just make Pokemon not a functional component, and I would give it a state and it would have everything that app has that has to do with it. It would have its own component to mount and just do everything there. But then I wouldn't be able to access that in home very easily if I wanted to. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything for today. We'll hit with router probably tomorrow. Question? Any other like final questions on that? Yeah, Mateo.
If you have your index, that's where you browse around them.
Yep.
And that makes it all work. Not that it will work.
Yeah. Good question, John.
Just a question like, say it's your app, AS configure, you have multiple switch tags here.
I think you only want the one switch tag, but you can. I should also mention this because this actually hasn't been asked yet. You can put route tags like in other files. If you read through the GitHub, I think they have a pet example, and they have in one of the pet.js another route for a different pet inside of there. So I personally, I like to have pretty much all of my routes in app because I like the idea of someone going to app and being able to see every route that I have. Because a route is just looking for where things are. But you can totally add routes inside. Like about could also have a route to go somewhere else. Yep.
Are you able to use Router in React and in Express at the same time? Or are they going to clash?
These will not clash. Express is going to be used with Axios.
But if you have a similar route for your API call and a route for your website,
So it's not, yeah, it won't clash. We're going to have to identify when it gets to that the actual path, the whole path that it's coming from with Axios. So it's a different, like actual, it's not on the same port. It's a different server running. So we go to that server to get the information. That's a good question. It won't clash. Not if we set up the rest of it right. All right. So you have an assignment. You've got some routing capabilities now. I'll add this to the Pursuit GitHub and push it, and All right, good luck. Oh my God.
It's not important.